What is the cost of masking? The mask protects you, but it always sends an invoice.
Hey, everyone. This is Jasmine with Jacque Alvarez Consulting. And I just wanted to say that I absolutely love We Should Be in Therapy podcast. I think it is so refreshing, so new, and just so innovative of what we should definitely be talking about in today's time. The podcast, I think, is just so needed, and it gives women like me just a safe space just to think about how we show up and how we bring about our full selves into places and spaces. So definitely check it out, and I am just definitely ready to hear more.
You're tired of the performance, the smiling, the masking, the holding it all together.
You need a place to put it all down.
I'm April, clinical researcher, author, and creative guide.
And I'm Jackie, an entrepreneur, mother of 4, and a realist best friend.
We bridge the gap between clinical science and spiritual intuition to help you navigate the messy middle.
No judgment, no matching pajamas required.
But before we pour the tea, a quick house rule. While we dig deep, this podcast is for educational support only. We aren't your therapists.
We are the village you've been looking for.
Welcome to the digital living room. This is We Should Be in Therapy. This episode contains honest, heavy conversations about the Baker Act, institutional trauma, misdiagnosis, domestic violence, and mental health crises. Please take care of yourself while listening. If it's too heavy for you today, it's perfectly okay to pause or skip this one. If you or someone you love is struggling, you don't have to carry it alone. You can call or text 988 in the U.S. 24/7 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, or reach out to your local crisis center. All right, let's head into the digital living room. I want to call something out right at the top. We don't have cameras rolling, but Jackie looks like, well, she's a little bit more made up than I am today.
You call this made up?
I mean, compared to me, yes.
Listen, I told you, I am an expert masker. If the plans fall apart, I still need my lashes on to feel I have some kind of control over my life.
And I look like I'm ready for a nap.
You look like you are prioritizing rest.
And honestly, that is the perfect introduction to what this podcast is actually about.
That tension between the need for control and the need for rest. That is this episode. Okay, cup check. I'm going to be 100% real with you right now. I am drinking leftover Coke from yesterday.
Jackie, please tell me it has ice in it.
No, girl, it don't. It is at room temperature and it is flat, but it has sugar and caffeine. And honestly, this is what the machine requires to function right now.
Okay, no judgment. I'm drinking water. I am trying to hydrate my nervous system because I'm feeling a specific kind of heavy.
You know, hearing you talk about that heaviness, it reminds me of the thing we always circle back to, the crash. Why don't you tell our listeners what the crash is?
Yeah, we talk a lot about 2018, but looking back, the pattern started way back in 2003. I had just left Emory, which was a safe bubble for me. And after Emory, I went to an Ivy League school up north for grad school. The environment shifted instantly. I was receiving feedback, not about my grades, but about my personality.
That is such a specific type of violence.
It is. And being a psychology student, I knew the rule. You can't control your environment. You can only control your response. So I went to a psychiatrist. I told her about my spiritual beliefs, my connection to the ancestors, and she smiled and acted fascinated. I've heard of this, she said. But then she wrote down bipolar in my chart.
She pathologized your spirit.
She did, but I took the meds because I was desperate. I wasn't trying to fix myself. I was trying to biohack my physiology to survive a hostile environment.
Hmm. You were chemically altering yourself to tolerate the intolerable.
Exactly. And that primed me for 2008. I was in a PhD program at another major university, but this time in Central Florida. The racism was overt still, and the premonitions started. The fear of being arrested, and there was like a terrible sulfur smell.
And in that clinical world that gets labeled as olfactory hallucinations?
Yeah, they labeled it bipolar disorder with psychotic features. But I actually wasn't wrong. My mom found out later that there's high sulfur in the water there. I wasn't hallucinating. I was hypersensing. My nervous system was picking up on a chemical reality that everyone else was tuning out.
Was it because people were already immune to it?
Well, no, so at this point I was actually in Florida. So I had gone up north for graduate school, but I actually left after a year because it was just that bad. There were two Black students in my program. They actually got us confused. They actually were giving my fellowship, giving my funding to this other person.
To the other Black person?
Yes. The school, of course, takes no responsibility. And, getting all the feedback about my personality, just really stressful environment to be in, real hostile. So I don't stay there. Talk to my mentors, and one of them in particular is like, April, why would you go back there? You don't need this, in your life. It's not worth it, So
Mhm.
I'm like, you know what? You're right. So I leave there. I work for a while. And then a few years later, I go back to graduate school at a different school.
This is now in Florida.
This is now in Florida. Lo and behold, guess what? Same thing. Get feedback on my personality. Only this time it's just worse because I'm getting this feedback like I'm only there because of diversity.
Mm.
That's how I got there. Also, now it's a whole big thing about cultural competence and wanting to make sure that clinicians are prepared to interact with and treat people who don't look like them. But what that really means is preparing white clinicians to treat
Black. People of color.
people of color, right? And so that means that if you are not white and you're sitting in this room, you're having to listen to all this information that's meant for white people.
Mm.
So it was very difficult to sit and listen to that and then have to listen to the white students sharing their experiences. Oh my gosh. One time I went to a gas station and I was the only white person there, and I was terrified. Oh my gosh. But guess what? Nothing happened. The people weren't violent at all, and just having to listen to all these stereotypes and,
Are you
it,
sensitive to those things?
at the time I was,
Sure.
and it was shocking to me because I had never been exposed to that. It's not to say that I hadn't experienced racism ever. I had a very horrible experience.
So how did you get arrested?
Well, I wasn't technically arrested, but I had this premonition that I was going to be arrested. And so,
How and when did that happen? Your premonition, like how did
yeah,
you come to
so
it?
I'm not sure if it was a dream or a vision, meaning I'm not sure if I was awake when I saw this or if I was sleeping, but I had a sort of a vision or dream that, where I saw myself being arrested. And actually, it was during a very stressful time. I mean, in addition to everything else that was going on with the stress and the racism and all of that. And, of course, meanwhile, I was in graduate school. That's stressful enough as it is.
Right.
But, on top of everything, I had a friend who had become very ill, and he actually eventually passed away. But I think around the time that the funeral was being planned or announced, or it was around that time, I had this vision that if I went, it was going to happen at the airport, that I would come down the escalator, go to pick up my checked luggage, and it would be like in the movies. The police would essentially attack me, pin me to the ground and arrest me.
So you didn't go to the funeral because of that premonition?
That was a reason that I felt a lot of anxiety about going.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, what ended up happening is that my parents called the local police to do a well check. And what that means is that they came by, they sent an officer to my apartment where I was living at the time. And, you know, that went smoothly. I told them I was fine. And they said, well, maybe give your mom a call. She's worried about you. And I was like, okay. But, I wasn't really fine. And so eventually my parents came to check on me for themselves. They saw that I was not fine. I was like not responsive. I wasn't really talking. But I was like in shutdown. But the way that mental health is handled back then and really at this point to this day, well, to be fair, I had at that point tried to get help on campus. The people on campus did try to help me. I had gone to the counseling center. I was involved with it was called at the time, the Office of Graduate Minority Program. The people there were very sweet, very supportive. Like maybe they had a social worker. I'm not sure what the person's background was, but the people were very supportive of me. So I do want to make that clear that a lot of support did happen prior to the police getting involved. In Florida, they have what they call the Baker Act. Yeah. And what happens is that by the time the police get involved, regardless of what your behavior is, the police take you to a psychiatric facility in a police car in handcuffs. And so it was like my premonition came true.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't technically arrested, but I was transported in a police car in handcuffs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it didn't play out the way that I saw it because I didn't travel, I didn't go to an airport. I wasn't attacked by armed officers or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was placed in handcuffs and had to be transported in a police car to somewhere. So that's an unfortunate reality of the mental health system, is having that police involvement.
It seems like you were like shut down. Huh?
It was complete shutdown. Possibly autistic shutdown. I don't have a formal diagnosis, but it's quite possible that that's what it was. But to the police, non-responsive looks like non-compliant. I wasn't violent, but I was silent.
The terrifying reality, silence is criminalized.
Yeah, I was an undiagnosed, possibly autistic medium experiencing spiritual emergence.
So you got misdiagnosed from being bipolar.
Well, the definition of misdiagnosis is that the diagnosis is either incorrect or incomplete.
Okay.
So I don't know if the bipolar is incorrect, but it was definitely incomplete.
Okay.
They did not address the trauma. They did not address the potential autism. They didn't address a lot of things. All they saw was psychosis.
So, April, I see this constantly with high-achieving women. We are literally gaslighting our own biology to remain employable.
Oh, absolutely. I once met a nurse who was on a high dose of anti-anxiety medication, and she told me, I don't have an anxiety disorder. I have a staffing shortage. She wasn't medicating a chemical imbalance. She was medicating a dangerous work environment just so she could clock in.
It's like saying, here's a pill so you don't have to feel the heat of the fire burning the building down. And then the job gives you a subscription to a meditation app and calls it corporate wellness.
Right? Just do some breath work in the bathroom. We call it resilience, Jackie. But a lot of the time, it's just compliance.
That hits hard because the tragedy is your body was actually right.
That's the canary in the coal mine. When I couldn't sleep in the Ivy League, or when that teacher breaks out in hives, that is the body screaming, get out. This isn't safe. But we mute the alarm because we can't afford to leave the building.
That is the high-functioning trap. You become the strong one.
Until you're the one who can't walk.
So you know what makes this worse? Our feeds. We see these influencers who are endlessly unbothered. They're perfect, glossy, nothing touches them. And we think that that's what healing looks like.
Right.
For me, the mask is often the matriarch. I have to be the one who fixes it all the time, the one who holds the family together. And if I'm not doing that, I flip to the funny friend.
The deflection.
If I'm making you laugh, you aren't looking too closely at how tired I am. I learned that if I'm entertainment, I'm safe.
For me, growing up, I was the goofy one. I was silly. But as I got older, society kept trying to shove me into the strong black woman box.
The strong black woman box.
Yeah, it's a stereotype. And it really is very dangerous, especially in healthcare. Doctors think that we don't have as much pain or we don't experience pain the same as other people. So oftentimes they won't give us proper care. You see these horrifying stories. There's a woman who was in labor, actively in labor, and they're holding her up in triage, asking her questions,
Yeah.
It's really awful.
That's so sad.
Yeah. And here's the rub for me. I don't identify with the gender. I'm non-binary. So not only are they like projecting this strength onto me that I didn't ask for, they're projecting a womanhood that doesn't fit me either.
So it's a double mask. You're masking your neurodivergence and your gender expression just to survive that box.
Yeah, and that's why the crash was inevitable. You can't live in a box that wasn't built for you.
When did you discover that you wanted to be non-binary?
Well, it's not so much that I want to be non-binary, I just am non-binary.
Or that you identify as that?
Well, I would say when I learned the word, I'm like, oh yeah, that fits me. But I'm going to say that when I was growing up, I did not like being a girl. I developed early. Like I started having breasts at a very young age. Like I might have been 8, and I got my period early. Like I might have been, I don't know, 8 as well, 8 or 9 or 10, something
young.
like that. I was in about the 4th grade. And it just was mortifying. It was just awful. Like, and I don't mean in the sense that it's, scary and horrifying for all girls. I don't mean it in that sense. I mean in the sense that it wasn't me. Like it just, like I wanted to be an athlete, and you can't be an athlete with boobs. It makes it very difficult to run fast and be when you have parts of your body that move in ways that, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that
it slows you down.
It slows you
Bothers you,
down.
and it hurts.
Yeah, it physically hurts. Yeah, I didn't like it at all. I've never wanted to have children. I didn't identify with that. I mean, I did play with dolls and things like that, and
Yeah, because
ponies.
I was just curious about that.
Yeah.
So let's name the thing. Into the jargon jar we go. The term is masking. Technically, the conscious or unconscious hiding of true feelings or neurodivergent traits to fit in.
But let's be clear. People hear masking and think it means being fake.
It's not fake. It's adaptive. It's survival. It's who you become when being fully yourself didn't feel safe.
Exactly. Nobody wakes up one day and says, I think I'll armor up for fun.
Right? You learn it. You learn this version of me gets love, or this version of me doesn't get abandoned. And before you know it, you're performing without ever realizing you're on stage.
But the wild part is, masking works. That's why it's so hard to let go of.
Yes, the mask gets you through. But April, I want to throw another term in the jar. Imposter syndrome. Because when you mask for too long, you feel like a fraud.
What are the signs?
Well, look at us right now. One of the biggest signs is hypervigilance. Even now in therapy, I realize I continually scan the room.
What do you mean?
I sit where my back is to the wall. I need to see everyone that walks in. And if the spot is not available, I sit by the exit. Even at home, I open the blinds during the day to see out. But once night falls, I have to close them because people can see me and I can't see them.
That is the exit strategy. You are always ready to run.
Always. Other signs is chronic exhaustion. scripts, rehearsing conversations in the car, in my head, everywhere I am, and inconsistent identity. So here's a new word, code switching. What it is code switching? Explain that to me.
So in the Black community, and really for any marginalized group, it's when we unconsciously or consciously switch our language, our tone, even our posture to make white people or professional spaces feel comfortable for us. It's like a linguistic mask.
Oh, okay. Wait, is that like the phone voice? Right. I currently work with someone. He's white. And he's an older person. So definitely he grew up in that area of where things were where racism was on the high, right? I know he has an issue with people of color. There's certain people that he just doesn't want to deal with. He loves, I can tell you easily what he loves. He loves the Southern woman. The one that's gonna, honey, oh, sweet pie. Oh, yes. He loves that, yes, ma'am. No, yes, sir. No, sir. I feel like he loves to be praised, right? In fact, we call that job, we're working at the plantation, just to kind of give you a sense of what it feels like to work there. But here, I must have been a rebel even in my past life and in this life. I remember when he would walk in out of respect and manners, right? Good morning, Mr. So-and-so. And he held his head high like, and I would say, oh, you didn't hear me. Good morning, Mr. So-and-so. And he would still. So the third time I would say it even louder, right? Hello, good morning, Mr. So-and-so. And so, but then he still wouldn't answer. So the next time I would work, I would never tell him good morning. If you don't want to talk to me, it's all good. Like, you want to talk to me because I'm brown? You don't have to talk to me because I'm brown. I'm going to still do what I need to do on my end, right? And you could stay in your ignorance. But Mr. GM, I don't know, somebody must have complained to HR because now he's like, Jacque, I appreciate you flying in to cover this shift. Well, the first time he told me that, my head started spinning. I was like, is something wrong with him? Did he get called to HR? So I don't know till this day, I don't know what happened to him, but now he's trying to talk a little more, you know, to kind of mask his true identity. I have been in certain situations because of that. I did get fired. I guess what's comforting for me is that I got fired for standing for myself. I got fired for standing for the Hispanic community. I got fired because I was a threat, you know, and I'm okay with being fired for those reasons because I'm not going to change none of that. What is the cost of masking? The mask protects you, but it always sends an invoice.
The invoice, say more about that.
Well, at first, the cost is small. You bite your tongue and you smile when you don't mean it. But over time, the charges add up. The cost is exhaustion. The kind of tired rest doesn't fix because pretending is work.
It is.
The cost is confusion. You start losing track of who you are. And when no one's watching, the cost is lonely because people can only connect to the version of you they're allowed to see. And being liked for the mask still feels like being unseen.
And the cost is your body keeping the score.
Tension. Of course. You carry tension because emotions you never release don't disappear. They settle. And maybe the highest cost of all is delaying your own life. Postponing joy, postponing honesty.
That was my autoimmune collapse. My body finally said, I cannot afford this invoice anymore.
Wow. So here's another thing about the cost of masking. Do you go through a day where you've been masking and now you're tired? And do you ask yourself, oh God, I should have never masked because I don't like this about myself that I had to mask. It's just too much.
Well, for me, it's always been unconscious, completely unconscious. Never realized I was doing it until recently.
Yeah, most of the time you never know. It becomes part of your personality or your identity, right? But like you and I, we did that trem group, right? That's when, at least for me, that's when I started realizing I have a freaking mask on all the time, right? I actually have several masks with several different positions in my life and people in my life. But sometimes at the end of the day, I will go home and question and tell myself, I didn't really need to mask. Why did I mask? I should have never masked. Now I'm in trouble for masking, you know, because now I got to keep the mask because I've already set up
The standard.
the standard.
Yeah, and you know what? I do have a mask in particular, and I called it my brand. I was Miss April, and people just attach a lot of labels to her. You know, she's kind, she's sweet, she's patient. And I really stopped identifying with a lot of that. It became a lot of effort to keep that up. I felt like I had to be that all the time, but it just became so exhausting, you know, because I'm not that sweet. I'm not that patient. I'm actually pretty easily irritated.
Really?
I mean, I do have a lot of patience for children. I do have a lot of patience for my students. I do have a lot of patience for music, for art, for being messy, for learning, for wrong notes. You know, I think there's no wrong notes. It all sounds good. But when it comes to just sort of everyday things, yeah, I actually have, you know, pretty short patience when it comes to certain other things. Yeah.
So let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Do you resent that now, or did you resent it in the moment? Like,
I do have a lot of resentment built up because I feel like not so much regret, or maybe it is regret, but like, I guess grief actually. It's grief, you know, like, gosh, I could have had more fun if, you know, I hadn't spent so much time exhausted.
yeah,
You know, if I hadn't spent so much time being someone else, you know, if I hadn't spent so much time being tired from being Miss April all the time.
yeah,
But at the same time, and we'll talk more about this, clearly I needed to do that. It was a survival mechanism, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's part of masking is to survive. Um, you were just saying you were burnt out, you know, the cost is your body keeping score. Stress, you burn out, anxiety, tension you carry because emotions you never release don't disappear. They just settle. The mask doesn't mean you fail. It just means you survived. So you had to put the mask on in order to get to the other side. But survival was never meant to be the final destination.
If you're struggling with feeling isolated in your healing journey, here's why.
You were never meant to do this alone.
We're talking about a very expensive invoice today. The exhaustion, the burnout, the physical toll of holding it all together.
And we don't want to just leave you with the bill. If you're realizing right now that you are paying too much for your survival, we have tools to help.
Stop guessing. Here's the proven system for finding your rhythm. Go to www.weshouldbeintherapy.com to get your free creative first aid kit. It has the sonic anchor, the color breathing guide to regulate our nervous systems when the mask gets heavy.
You don't have to do this alone. Go to weshouldbeintherapy.com and download the toolkit for free.
Start paying yourself first. Now let's get back to the show.
And one day you realize the mask protected you long enough, but now it's costing you more than it's saving you.
Yeah.
So the cost of masking in the beginning is survival. But the amount of time that you do it for causes all of these long-term effects, including mental health. It's so important, just like we discovered that all this time we were masking and didn't realize it until we finally went to group and we finally talked about it. Now, we finally can now start attempting to remove the mask whenever we want to start doing that. It's got to be done in a safe place.
Right.
With safe people.
Right.
Okay. Now, this is when the mask starts to slip. The mask doesn't fall off all at once. It slips in moments you don't plan for, in exhaustion, in silence, in the spaces where you can't keep pretending. And it's
Usually during a breakdown or a burnout.
It slips when the thing you thought would fix everything doesn't. When success still feels empty. When being strong stops working, it slips during loss. 100%. It's one of my most vulnerable times was when my brother passed away, and that was very difficult. During heartbreak, becoming a parent, you catch yourself reacting instead of performing, and suddenly the mask feels heavier than the truth.
And you ask, who am I without this?
Who would I be if I stopped holding it together for everyone else? The story of my life, holding it together for everyone else. And that moment is terrifying because the mask has been my protection, my identity, and it feels familiar. But April, that slip, it's not a failure. It's information. It's your nervous system saying, I'm tired. This is your soul saying, this isn't sustainable.
So unmasking may sound brave, but it's also dangerous.
It is. Unmasking isn't about oversharing or tearing yourself open for everyone to see. It's about discernment. Not everyone deserves access to the real you.
Say that again.
Not everyone deserves access to the real you. Authenticity without safety isn't healing. It's exposure. Boundaries aren't walls. They're filters. You don't owe everyone the same version of yourself. I want to make a distinction here, though, because I can hear the rule followers listening to this and panicking. They think unmasking means they have to tell everyone their business immediately.
Right. But I want to push back on the idea that sharing publicly is always bad. When I started my journey, I didn't have a therapist. I didn't have a safe local community. I went to Quora. I went to Medium. I poured my heart out to strangers online.
And for some people, that looks like oversharing.
Exactly. But for me, that wasn't oversharing. That was me sending up a flare. I was looking for a witness when I didn't have one in my real life.
That is such a powerful reframe. So it's not about where you share. It's about the intention.
Yes. Are you sharing to connect, or are you bleeding out in front of people who are holding knives? Because that has happened to me too.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's the difference between privacy and secrecy. It's a boundary. It's saying, I am choosing who deserves to hear this. Secrecy is shame. It's hiding because you think you're broken.
And if the only place you feel safe enough to stop hiding is an anonymous forum online, then that is your village right now, and that is valid.
100%. Find the safety where you can. Just make sure it's actually safe. So, I want to talk about this when the masking starts falling off. So all my life I have a mask on, right? Well, from as far as I can remember, right? But I know that we talked about parenthood. I feel like my mask started slipping off at parenthood. But here's the thing, I would push it back on because in my head I created a mom that was ideal. I created a mom that would play with my children, that would read books to them, that would care for them so deeply. Like in my head, I was the perfect mom. But now that I am older, and my children are older, they could probably say, that was not you. Like, who are you talking about? You know? And I feel like, was I masking? That's who I really wanted to be. And that's who I thought I was. But I feel like now that the kids are older, what I thought was a good mom makes me feel now that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. Now, my kids will tell me out of pity or, no, you were, but I say that because when we have discussions or we talk about me being a mom, that's when the truth comes out about me being not as a great mom as I figured in my head. I just wanted to say that because I feel like a lot of moms suffer with that, especially in my age group, where you think one thing and actually your kids, look at it differently. And that's a very hard pill to swallow. And it makes me just want to keep the mask on, but actually hide.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just want to hide from it because now I'm embarrassed. Now I'm like this whole picture, not Cinderella, but this whole perfect mom that I always wanted to be and that I thought I was never existed in their eyes. So now here comes the mask back on. Do you think we'll ever get rid of the mask?
Well, the mask served us well. It protected us, right? We needed the mask. And so maybe thank the mask and accept the mask, thank the mask, slowly let the mask go when we don't need it. But we do talk about later on the show something we can do instead of masking, something that's a little bit more intentional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My brain went back to that time that we were in therapy, that we were writing down things or habits that were created from trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And mine was scanning the room, watching exit sign, being hypervigilant,
Hypervigilant.
hypervigilant. And then the exercise was to list all those things and next to it say like what you're replacing it with,
Mm-hmm.
right? With something positive, like, because that's all like a negative thing. And what we're replacing it with something positive. Do you want to replace it or do you want to keep it? I always said I wanted to keep it.
Keep the mask.
Keep the
keep the hypervigilance.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the hypervigilance, the scanning of the room.
Do you still feel that way?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes me feel safer. It could be because of my trauma with domestic violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always on the lookout. And I know I've shared this with group and I've shared it with our friend group too, that I want to make a difference in the world for people that are domestic violence survivors. So slipping off the mask is kind of hard to do, but it is a good thing to start working on that.
Let's bring this to the altar. The card I pulled today is the High Priestess. I'm always pulling this card or a similar card. Like in the New Orleans Oracle deck, there's a card called the Power card, and it features Marie Laveau on the card. Mm-hmm. I'm constantly pulling this card. And I went to look for it to have it, to show it to you. I keep that one on my actual altar. But
you have an altar?
Yeah.
Where is that altar?
Well, I'd be a little embarrassed to show it to you right now because I keep the cat litter box right there too. It's full of
I'm dead. You keep the altar full of
All right. The High Priestess.
Hidden knowledge?
Exactly. For years, doctors told me my intuition, my High Priestess, was sickness. They told me my intuition was paranoia. But the High Priestess isn't crazy. She's just tuned into a frequency the others can't hear.
That aligns perfectly with where we met. the TREM support group, which means Trauma, Recovery, and Empowerment Model.
That room was the first time I realized that my people-pleasing wasn't a personality quirk. It was a trauma response, and the evidence is in the body.
I remember talking and you're like, people pleasing. I realized going through the process that that was a trauma response. And I realized, holy crap, that's a trauma response for me too. I think the information that you get is actually true information about yourself. When being strong is failing and how vulnerable you can get. But you got to do the work. You got to do the work. You got to walk through it. I cannot stress enough how therapy and group has worked to figure that part out.
Yeah, it's like data collection. It's so important to go through that phase. It's so difficult and hard, and it can feel like a breakdown. But you're right, it is information gathering, and it's necessary.
Do yourself the favor to gather that information and start taking that math. So let's talk about ways that we could start doing that.
Okay.
So how do we start to put the mask down without feeling unsafe? We have a few tools for you.
Tool number 1, start small. Unmask in low-risk spaces first.
You don't want to start with your deepest wounds. Like April said, you want to start small. You can practice by saying, I'm actually tired instead of I'm fine. How many times? Oh, how are you? I'm fine. Start by saying how you actually feel. And you know what? When you start doing that, it starts liberating you. This is why in therapy, when we start your feelings check,
Right.
you know, it's kind of like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. You know, today, remember you told me you felt rested.
Oh, right. Yes. Today I did feel rested because I got a full night's sleep. The first full night's sleep I've gotten in a long time. Yes.
So say how you feel. Instead of saying I'm fine, say I'm actually tired if you're tired.
Yeah.
I'm actually upset if you're upset.
Yeah, now by the end of the day, I'm actually stiff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Unmasking is a muscle, so build it up gently.
Right.
What else can we do?
All right. So you can also notice when you're performing. Ask yourself in real time, am I trying to be liked right now? Am I shrinking or exaggerating myself? Would I respond this way if I actually felt safe?
100%. Awareness comes before change.
Right.
This is the one that resonated with me. Am I shrinking or exaggerating myself?
Right.
Have you ever?
And see, this is where it goes back to like the whole code switching thing. I didn't even realize I was doing this, but I definitely shrank and exaggerated myself in professional spaces. Like I would be smiling all the time. Like people would even comment on it. You're always smiling. And I took that feedback and unconsciously just kept smiling all the time. It was unnatural. Like looking back, I'm like, I must have looked like a clown with a painted on smile. I mean, some people probably thought it was, might have thought it was pleasant, but like there's a particular person that I think of that I remember who had a plastered on smile and they wore bright red lipstick. And I was a child. So I remember thinking that that person looked like a clown because they had they were always smiling and they wore bright red lipstick and a lot of makeup. And I just associated that with the clown face. And you know, like that's how a child's mind thinks. They think things like that and their children are mean. So I thought that about the person. And now I'm realizing that I was that person too. The clown face.
But you know, we pick up habits too.
Right. Yeah.
You know, especially if you see something, you're like, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah,
I'm going to say that.
I didn't like it. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was funny. But subconsciously, I must have liked something
Yeah, a
about
good
it.
way to hide.
Yeah,
because
for
she was
sure.
always smiling.
Right. I mean, also in hindsight, I'm thinking she must have been on some medication.
Now that you're older and wiser.
And guess what? When I was smiling all the time, I was on medication too.
Were you?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I can resonate with the shrinking or exaggerating. So the shrinking, I can tell you, good example, because it's always present in my life still. Okay. So there was this person in my life where I was dating and kind of dated him for a minute. He was how do I say this candidly?
Different level of education than you did.
Yeah, and a different way of life too. It's just a mother of 4 girls. I always had to be very aware of where we lived and our surroundings, right? So anyway, all to say that I remember a time in my life where I was shrinking myself to that level as well. And this was like an eye opener to me of another symptom that I had of masking. So notice when you're performing, right? And I was performing my shrinking just to accommodate him.
I totally get it.
So when you see yourself doing any of these, just be aware of it so you can make the change.
Absolutely.
Right? The third one, separate privacy from secrecy. Not sharing everything doesn't mean you're hiding. Privacy is healthy. Secrecy is fear-based. You're allowed to say, I don't want to talk about that anymore, or I don't want to talk about that.
Before, choose people, not audiences. Unmask with people who don't rush to fix you, who don't weaponize vulnerability, and who don't disappear when things get real. If someone only knows how to consume your story, not hold it, keep the mask on.
Wow. This one's actually telling you to keep that mask on, but here's this. Don't weaponize vulnerability.
Right. Definitely happen.
5, use your body as a signal. Your body tells the truth before your mouth does. This is so true. I learned this in TREP. The mind forgets, but the body remembers.
The body remembers what the mind forgets.
Yeah, I just said it backwards.
Right. Yeah, I think that's we'll have to look it up and put it in the show notes, but I think that's a quote from a book. Yeah.
Yeah. You have the tight chest, the shallow breathing, the jaw clenching, the immediate exhaustion.
Right.
Those are cues you're masking too hard or too long.
Right.
I get this pit in my stomach, like this fullness and emptiness, like in my stomach, where I'm like, ugh, or the clenching in my back.
Yeah,
from the tightness in the back.
Yeah, I feel it. It's like crawling up my back into my neck and shoulders. Yeah, real bad tension there, and then I just feel exhausted. The exhaustion is a huge.
Yeah, for me too.
Next is practice saying neutral truths. You don't have to be dramatic to be honest. You can try saying things like, that didn't sit right with me, or I need more time, or simply, I'm not comfortable with that. Calm honesty is powerful.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Here's when you're an expert masker, right? And somebody who's trying to work on unmasking tells you this, I take it as an offense. Like, I was offended when my friend said, I need more time. For what? You know? So I'm realizing this now, though. Like, as we speak, as we dive deep into this, like somebody that's always masking, I took big offense by that. But again, she was probably working on unmasking. Give her props for that.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to be inconsistent. Now, this is crazy because I love consistency, but
Me too. Right.
But I'm really hard at giving consistency. Unmasking doesn't mean being the same everywhere. You could be strong at work and soft at home, guarded in public open and safe places. That's not fake. That's regulated. There's a very few places where I can feel safe. Right now, we talked about this the other day, is two, which is you and Rudy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best avenue to work on unmasking is to really find somebody you can truly trust, somebody that understands and that's walking the same path as you,
Mm-hmm.
because they're more likely to not judge you and
Mm-hmm.
to encourage you to keep going. And for me, like I said, it's just those two people. So it's really hard to put that mask down.
I bet a lot of our listeners feel the same way. So I just want to encourage our listeners, definitely join us in our online community on school. Be sure to sign up for our news on Substack. Go to our website, weshouldbeinTherapy.com. Keep in touch with us that way.
Yeah.
I know, not everybody has access to therapy. Not everybody even has friends or even a friend. So, like I was sharing before, there was definitely a time for me. All I had was the internet. I had the online spaces. So, we're definitely working hard to create that digital living room online. So we're here for you. Our next tool, grieve the version of you that survived. This one's big. Thank the mask. It kept you alive, employed, connected, but give yourself permission to outgrow it.
Yeah, 100%. Number 9 is redefine strength. Strength isn't endurance. It's responsiveness. Resting, saying no, asking for help. The strongest people aren't the most masked. They're the most self-aware.
Absolutely. Number 10, unmask for yourself first. Before anyone else knows the real you, you need to know you. Journal, sit in silence, be honest when no one's listening. That's where the real work happens.
I think this is really, really good if you start journaling. I think you should journal for everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you keep a journal?
I do not.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to. This is the reason why I don't. When I was teenager, adult, early adult, I would journal a lot. And my sister, being 7 years younger than me, she was always in my stuff, and she found my stuff and gave it to my mom, and I got in trouble. So now when I want to journal, I'm like, oh, somebody's going to read this one day, and I really don't want them to. But now with technology, I can journal in my phone, I could keep notes.
Yeah, there are some great journaling apps too.
Really?
Yeah, I'll share them. And something important for everyone to remember, for us all to remember, unmasking isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were before you learned to hide. So we have a couple more tools to share. The sonic anchor. This is for when you feel depersonalization. Find one low note. This can be on an instrument or with your voice, such as humming. Sustain that low note. Feel the vibration in your chest. It anchors you back in the room.
I love the next tool, role playing versus masking. This is my favorite. I love this one.
Me too.
So masking disconnects you from yourself. It asks, how do I need to be to stay safe? Role playing is intentional. It asks, what is appropriate for this moment, right? You can be the professional in the meeting, but you can stay connected to yourself. You know you are playing a role.
So you can take the costume off at the end of the day.
Exactly. So we're expert role players, by the way. Not only we're expert maskers, but now we're expert role players. I love the role playing part.
And we'll listen back to it, and it actually is hilarious.
It is very hilarious because we get into Petty Betty. We just have so many characters. After that role playing, I just literally just wipe the slate clean. I love role playing.
Yeah, so ultimately, we covered a lot today, a lot of heavy topics, and all centered around masking, burnout, exhaustion, and strategies for unmasking, including role playing. We have a couple of questions for our listeners.
Who knows the real you? Is there anyone in your life, a partner, a friend, a pet, who has seen you without the mask?
And if the answer is no one, that's okay. That's just information. But we want to know. And I have a question too. What mask do you wear the most? Are you the funny friend, the fixer, the unbothered one, the strong one?
DM us or drop it in the school community and let's talk about it. Well, April, does anybody in your life have seen you without the mask on?
Yeah, for sure. You, Jamie, for sure.
Really?
Yeah. Maybe some people in my family.
My answer is no one. They've seen little glimpses of me without a mask, but not fully unmasked. You and Rudy have seen me mostly unmasked, but there's still some residual stuff going on. I'm still especially with him, right? I'm still very vulnerable because I'm always, this is another topic for another show. I'm always waiting for the shoe to drop, right?
Right, yeah. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So remember, survival is a chapter, not the whole story. If your mask feels heavier lately, if it starts to crack, if you're tired of being strong in rooms where you feel small, that's not weakness, that's wisdom. You don't have to disappear to belong. You don't have to perform to be loved. You don't have to earn rest by suffering first. Some people will only ever know the mask, and that's okay. But somewhere, with someone, there is a space for the real you. And when you find it, you'll realize the most powerful thing you can do is stop pretending you're not tired. This isn't the end of the mask, it's the beginning of choice. And choosing yourself is the bravest unmasking of all.
We hope you find a little bit of rest here today. If this episode helped you carry the load a little lighter, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Here's what nobody tells you about reviews.
They aren't for our ego. They are lighthouses. They signal to the algorithms and, more importantly, to other people wandering in the dark that this is a safe place to land.
So help us build the lighthouse.
We appreciate you.
I'm April.
And I'm Jacque.
Thanks for joining us in the digital living room. This is We Should Be in Therapy.